When I think of a king, I immediately think of a guy in a bright shiny crown with a suit of armor and a big stone castle. He probably has a fancy horse and a lot of knights by his side. This is a rather medieval view of kingship. However, for the average Joseph in ancient Israel, a king played a rather different role. Rather than being rich, the king was supposed to know the Torah, which was the Old Testament laws. While the medieval king was supposed to be a master in combat, the only sword fighting the Israelite king was supposed to be doing was sword drills. The Israelite king was commanded to read the law of the Lord daily. It's obvious that God wanted the Israelites to have a spiritual leader instead of a political one. Unfortunately, the average king of Israel did a rather bad job of it. Solomon, who is usually considered to be one of the better kings, breaks almost all of the rules God had set for him in Deuteronomy. Solomon gets a ton of horses and chariots from Egypt. He amasses a large amount of wealth, making silver as common as stones, and takes many wives, a lot of which were from outside Israel, bringing their false gods into Solomon's house. It only gets worse after Solomon, with many kings not knowing the laws and statutes of God in any meaningful way. All of the spiritual leaders of Israel were supposed to be anointed. However, only a few of Israel's kings were anointed. Anointing was done by someone pouring oil over their head. This was to show that the leader had aligned themselves with God's purposes. The kings that we see are anointed are Saul, David, Solomon, Jehu, and Jehoash. Most of these kings start strong, with a dedication to God and following his statutes, before falling off towards the end of their reigns. However, there is one person in the Bible who is anointed and follows the law perfectly. The Hebrew word for anointed is Messiah, and the Greek word is Christ. Usually, the kings were anointed by a prophet. However, the last king in the Bible is anointed by a sinful woman who gets down at this king's feet and weeps as she pours perfume on them. The king is Jesus. Jesus is anointed as the final king in the biblical narrative. We see that he doesn't amass a hoard of wealth, horses, or women like the other sinful kings. Instead, Jesus shows what the laws of God mean through how he lived and taught in the gospel narratives. The good news is that Jesus is finally the king that gets it right.